All right. Good morning, everyone. I am here with Ted Metellus. And Ted, I am so excited to talk with you. As everybody knows, Ted is the new race director of the TCS New York City Marathon. And Ted, it's so funny because both of us have really started these new roles just within the last couple months or so. Me with, CEO of Running USA, and you as the new director, race director of New York City Marathon. Tell me, is this your dream job?
Yeah, first, Donna, thank you so much, and hello to everyone from Running USA. I have a great relationship with the organization and all the various
Yes.
members there. So it's great to be at this platform and chatting with folks. The short answer is yes. I mean, when everyone, whether they consciously or unconsciously, they strive to continue to grow, mature, learn, develop with every event that they work on, every event that they're a part of.
Yeah.
Starting as an event, manager and a recruitment coordinator, and just kind of working your way through this industry in a variety of capacities to get to this place is like the goal. Like that's again, whether you
Oh yeah.
consciously or unconsciously, this is where like you're like, oh my gosh, I am the race director. I'm that person. So
Yes.
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you. So what would you say, like you said, you've had all these different roles, right? Leading up to this like dream job. What are you most excited about, like about the role in general?
Uh, you know, it's a great question, and it's interesting under the circumstances in the world that we live in right now. It's ultimately to get back cooking again, to get back to producing events.
Yeah.
It might be the easiest slash hardest question, and easiest slash hardest task is to get things going again. I mean, we've been producing
Yeah.
events, some small scale events, return to racing, safe operations to kind of prove out the science and the math and the tech and the operations of producing events and kind of growing it to scale. So that part we have, but now getting that to go in scale is the goal. So it's no different than many of our colleagues in the service
Yeah.
industry that own restaurants and bars and everything else. And you just want to get back in the kitchen and start cooking again. And that's exactly what
Yeah.
we want to do. And we want to do it for not just our family, we want to do it for everybody.
Yes, yes, let's get cooking. That's what I want to say too. That sounds great. So, of course, really challenging times, like you just talked about. What would be like the questions that need to be answered for November's race, right? Everybody's probably thinking about that. And as we're kind of talking to you today, it's late February, about to be March, in a couple of days here. So there's got to be some questions that are top of mind that will enable you to actually run in November.
Yeah, Donna, honestly, that is an easy answer to provide. It's not a question of can we produce the marathon or can we produce our events. It's not even a question of how we're going to do that because we've been working collaboratively as an industry and obviously internally on what we can execute. It's how the event will look like. That's the
Right.
question. And that's something that we as event producers or me in this position in New York don't have the answers to right now. Everything changes daily. And that's the kind of the parameters that we're all working with in this industry. It's not a question of can we produce our events? We can absolutely execute it.
Right.
It's how that event will look like. How big will it be? What are the elements that are going to be there? What's the timelines that we have to work with? What are the parameters that we are given by city, state, country, municipality that we can then take and say, great, we now have a known that's executed.
So are you guys sitting in a room now thinking about the ifs, I guess? So it'll look like A, if this happens, it'll look like B if this happens. And so you're kind of putting those plans already in place, or
Absolutely.
how do you, yeah, okay. So I was going to say, how do you get there? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
it could all be different in 30 days.
yes, 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 for sure. I mean, it's I love putting things in perspective and real world settings. Obviously, we're talking to a very specific audience with our race producer, event producers, but there may be lay people that are listening to this that aren't familiar with this. So it would be no different than planning a family function or a birthday party or a retirement party or a christening or something to that effect. You should have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. If it's outdoors and it rains, where do we go? If this thing changes or that thing changes, how do we adjust? So we have a list of assumptions that we look at, And we want to, and my team hears me say this a lot,
Yeah.
the knowns versus the unknowns. You plan for the knowns and you prepare for the unknowns. So we're planning for everything that we know we can do. And I was talking to a colleague of mine recently on the team, and they were like, oh, Ted, this is going to be so wild. Like, how are we going to do this? And I go, the easy part is good. Like, it starts in Staten Island. It runs 26 points. This is the Central Park. Like, imagine having
piece of cake.
Exactly. Well, imagine having this conversation in 1970, and the city is in, all kinds of array and things are going nuts. And somebody's going to walk into the mayor's office and say, hi, we want to take this race that just happens inside of Central Park and run through all 5 boroughs of New York City. Like, that's hard. Like, so the hard part, we've done 49 times already, So, going into the 50th running of the event, that part is the knowns. It's the unknowns that we need to navigate and process. Yeah.
So if you had a crystal ball, so somebody asked me this the other day on a podcast, and I'm like, I definitely don't have a crystal ball, but if you had a crystal ball, personally, where do you think our industry will be come fall? Like, what do you think, what's the outlook for us?
Optimistically speaking, good. And this is only looking at what's happening and with the trends and data that's happening, not only locally in the New York metro area, across the state, but globally as well. Numbers are looking good. Yes, there's the variant that's out there. I'm not an MD, I'm not Dr. Fauci. Like, I'm not going to give data. I'm going to let the pros do their thing. But looking at where we are versus where we were, we're in a better place. And even if you think about where we were 364 days ago, where there was this talk of COVID and where it was, and we don't understand it. And is it in Europe? Is it only in Asia? Like, there were all these questions that were there. We know more now than we did 364 days. We know more now than we knew a month ago. So if that continues to be the trend, it will bode to be positive for us come the fall with the production of our events and the execution of our events.
Yeah, well, I love your answer. I keep saying, for me, it's hopefully optimistic. I'm just so hopeful that, we'll slowly, again, it might not be back to normal as we've known it, but at least get back, in the swing of things. So I wanted to ask, I know like the New York Roadrunners work diligently to provide virtual options in lieu of a live event. What were some of the takeaways of that effort? Like, what came of it? Anything for the future? How did it work? Was it a success? What were your thoughts on it?
It was a success. Tremendous learnings on being able to have a variety of offerings to a variety of people. The global impact, which is huge, and seeing what that is, because we partner with Strava, and the reach that's there is tremendous. Those were all the positive takeaways from there. Virtual was amazing. I'm an old school event producer. Like, I'm in production, build it, set it, watch them all show up. And virtual is the equivalent, again, kind of paralleling the earlier example of restaurants. It's like a restaurant. So you might have had your traditional brick and mortar restaurant where you're able to serve X many people at a time, but do you have a delivery option? Do you have an online option that I can order delivery? Do you have the ability to have a pop-up set scenario, like a food truck type scenario? That's where our industry is going. So it's not only the in-person offerings, but there's a virtual offering, and like the pop-up version of being able to have small scale gatherings that are safe within parks and whatnot, training opportunities that are there. Engaging people with challenges, which has been amazing, like 100K challenges and so on and so forth, building people's mileage and keeping them part of the community. Those were just some of the many, many benefits of the virtual platform that we've seen benefits to. And as far as like the future of virtual, I think should run in parallel with in person. I think
that was my next question. See, this is great. So you do think you'll see like a hybrid going forward for your events, but also you think you'll see it in the industry as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's all scalability. I think it all depends on what you can do. Obviously, we're running USA. The one thing that always came up, and we always chat, I know, talking to Christine and the different members of the board and whatnot over the years, is scalability. Like, it can't just talk big shop. You have to talk everybody. And you want to be that platform for small races and big races, small productions and big productions to learn. So if you're able to provide a in-person offering and a virtual offering, you should do so. And the cool thing about the virtual offering is it's not exclusive to just the space that you're executing the event. It can open it up globally.
Yeah, globally and all year long, right? I mean, it's incredible. So I'm in your camp. I know there are other camps that say, oh no, virtual is completely going away after this is all over. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think there's going to be some really talented, race directors that are going to figure out a way just to really catapult their whole, series or whatever using virtual platform, as well as the thing we all love, which is the live platform. But if you had to say the number one lesson or even memory that you will kind of carry forward post pandemic, what would that be?
Perspective. I mean, that's the big thing. I mean, think about the P word from 2020. Everybody was pivoting to the left, pivoting to the right, pivoting up, pivoting down. Everybody was pivoting everywhere. Pivot,
Yeah.
pivot.
That word, yes.
We always had a bell that we used to ring every time we listened to like a online virtual conference or various meetings, and like how many times is someone going to say the word pivot?
Oh my goodness.
So I think this year and moving forward, it's all about perspective. I mean, think about it, Dawna. Everything that you had experience was quickly taken away from you. Like you can't take things for granted. So looking at things from perspective, trying to see things from a longer lens or a longer runway. Those are the big takeaways there. Really thinking virtually in the sense, not technically in that like running sense, but like, okay, putting yourself in that space. Where are we going to be? How are we going to be there? Thinking strategically with your organization, your offerings, your platform. So I think that is the biggest takeaway, is just looking at things from a place of perspective.
Yeah, instead of always doing things because we did it this way, we'll always do it this way. I think it's interesting to see. I think as an industry as a whole, I think we're going to get better. You know what I mean? Because of this.
Absolutely.
Not that I ever wished it, but because it's happened and we couldn't stop it, we are going to get better.
Absolutely. And what happened all through 2020, and we're working hopefully out of it in 2021, is what you stated, which you were forced to do things differently. You were forced to do things differently. Like whether you were, people sitting there saying like, I would never do virtual. Well, that's an offering that you engage people with. Yeah. Revenue stream. It's an opportunity to continue to engage with your community. You're thinking differently.
Yeah, very true. And I mean, I like the virtual just because I think knowing my running group and the people I run with constantly, it kept people motivated, which was really nice. So we were all depressed enough about, all of our events being taken kind of away from us, but at least we had this opportunity to get inspired and be motivated together. So that was nice.
Absolutely.
So I have to ask, so, really 2020 also was the year that the industry just talked about diversity and equity and inclusion more really than it has ever before. What do you see as the industry's role in creating awareness and safe spaces for all within our industry?
So I've said this to some friends and colleagues. COVID was the great equalizer because it affected everybody, no matter who you are, where you are, what your class was, whatever the scenario was, it affected you in some capacity. And I think the social and racial awakenings of our country and the world was the great revealer. To say that there is a demographic of people out there that aren't being serviced and taken care of. Yes, there is a racial divide in this nation and in the world. And I think to answer the question specifically about our industry, it's engaging with communities. It is demystifying running and what that is. It is, a lot of organizations and a lot of events and groups are like, well, we have an open door policy. We welcome everybody to come in and come join. I'm like, yeah, well, you don't feel comfortable.
That's not enough.
That's not an option. But what you can do though is engage with local communities and engage with run clubs, engage with road races that are happening in your area, whether as a participant or say, hey, listen, I'd like to offer my services. I'd like to help you in some way, shape, or form, or just communicate with them. Offer some of the services and platforms that you have as a professional in the industry or a knowledgeable provider in the industry, and provide that to different diverse communities. So I think that's the first step. I think one of the big things too is education. Taking time out individually to learn and understand and have a better process, ask the questions, take time to not just say, I'm sorry for what's going on, what can we do? But more along the lines of, I'm sorry for what's going on. help me understand, talk to me, share
Yeah.
with me what your journey is, share with me what you've gone through. So I think those are some of the takeaways and learnings that we could apply individually as
Yeah.
just citizens of the world, but also in our industry.
Yeah. So I love the way you're talking about it, because I feel like it's about, at least this is me personally, but it's about action, rather than just talk. And I was mentioning this to someone the other day, is I'm going to age myself, but way back in the early 90s when I was in the workforce, it was, the whole talk was about work-life balance for women. You know what I mean? And it was everywhere you went, any company was doing stuff about work-life balance. They all had these great programs, but in the end of the day, when you tried to actually do those programs, they really didn't help. They didn't act on those goals. And so for me, I look back and say, well, it's great we're talking about it. Let's continue to talk, but what are we doing? And so I think I wrote down, you said, what can we do? What can we do? That's the question out there. And I would love to see it from talking about it to all of us being able to take action. So thank you. That was actually the best I've heard it.
Absolutely, absolutely, John. And with that, with the what can I do piece, and think about it from an operations perspective. When somebody comes over and says, how can I help you on an event site, it now turns into like, oh man, now I got to figure out something that I can do. But coming to them and saying, hey, listen, I came to your run club, or I've been to your race, and I have some constructive feedback, or here's some tips on like where you can get source cups, where you can get t-shirts and merch for like, then it's like, it's not so much what can I do, but it's functional, like here's something that can help you.
Yeah, a whole other way to look at it. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I have to ask, like, I keep looking back at, okay, this new role, to me, if I'm in your shoes, it is the dream job, right? So what would you say, like could you pick one or two major moments in your career that you feel like, and maybe there isn't any, or maybe there's more than one or two, but that really took you from where you were to this new role? Like, can you picture those moments that happened that maybe got you here?
Yeah, there are so many. So I was joking with some buddies of mine. I have a group of friends from all over the country working on a variety of different events, and I told them about this position shift and what I'm going to be doing. And I'm like, remember when picking up trash? Remember when like picking up tipped over toilets off the side of the road? Remember when jumping up and down in the dumpster to make room for more trash? Like, remember when having to talk to a city agency and partners that really did not want to work with you and explain to them what it is that you're going to do and create that level of comfort for them? So, those are just like a slew of different examples there. But I think for me, the big thing was, September and October of 2001, getting, actually, I remember it was like August of October 01, getting a phone call from my friend Jessica Wolf, who was an event manager at Roadrunners, and saying, hey, listen, we need some help with the marathon and some of the planning. We need another operations person. Jess and I worked together prior to it at a company called Pull Out of Teamworks. And I was like, sure, no problem. It's New York City Marathon. Everybody knows New York. I'm from New York. It's an iconic event. Let's see what this running thing is all about. And I green lighted to go. I closed out one of the projects that I was working on with the company I was with, because our season wrapped up in September, on September 10th. So one of our last events was September 10th of 01. And I'm flying back from Portland, Maine. And I get home and I'm super excited because I've been on the road for weeks and weeks and weeks. I'm gonna see family and friends and everybody. And it's so crazy. I vividly remember this. And at the time, because I was traveling and on the road, I was back in the Bronx at my mom's place where I grew up. So I crash, go to bed, wake up the next morning early, and I'm listening to the news, I'm listening to the weather, and it's going to be a beautiful day. So I'm like, oh, fantastic. This is great. So I hit the snooze, go back to sleep, wake up, and the world is completely different.
Yeah.
So fast forward to November, October leading into it, and then November, the actual race day, being in Central Park 2 months after 9/11, and just seeing everything that was happening there, it was it. And if you told me 20 years ago that 20 years later that I'll be the race director of the marathon, marking my 20th anniversary, 2 months after the 20th anniversary of 9/11, I would just be like, first I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like that's not going to be me. And that's where I am right now. So in that 20 plus years of just learning, doing, sharing, hearing, applying, good times, bad times, hard times, successful times, all of that culminates to where I'm at right now.
Yeah, no, amazing. I got chills as you're talking about it. I think we can all remember exactly where we were. You had mentioned something about like, jumping in trash cans and picking up food and doing all. Well, I feel like I had been a race director of a series that I sold, but I feel like as race directors, we still do that.
Yeah.
No matter where you are, what event you're, race directing, how big, how iconic it is. I'm sure I will still see you out there one day picking up a banana peel or something. Like, I think that's part of what I love so much about this community is people are just willing to do anything and everything to make the event a success.
You lead from the front. One of my
Absolutely.
good friends and colleagues, Frankie Ruiz from Miami Marathon, he said that a long time ago. He goes, you lead from the front. And there's no better way to engage your team and engage your community than be out there grinding. Although I'm being told by many people, including my chiropractor and back doctor, do not bend over and touch anything. But I will still be out there. It'll still be philo, first in, last out, always.
Yeah. Oh yeah, always. So, and this industry of all industries, I feel like I've been in a lot of different industries. This is the one where people just, the first in, first out, always, last out, excuse me, always. I love it. So your career has kind of taken you all over, and I would love just to hear about I've lived in New York City, by the way. So I would love to hear what you love about living in New York City.
It's, biasly speaking, it's the greatest city in the world. I have tremendous love for the great city. We have the best team in the world.
I knew it was coming out.
Absolutely. This is for my friends in Boston in particular. So I think the thing that I love about New York is a variety. I mean, obviously, pre-pandemic, whatever you wanted, you can have. Whatever. In the sense of like, I want to have Thai food. You can go to a Thai restaurant. I want to have, Dominican food. You can go to Dominican. Like, there's different neighborhoods and communities that are there. So the variety is tremendous. It's where the world comes. I remember traveling to, I went to Torino, Italy many years ago for the Olympics. And I'm sitting in a circle full of folks and we're all chit-chatting about where we're from. And, folks are like, I'm from this country, I'm from that country, I'm from this place, I'm from that place. And then they get to me and everyone's talking about the country that they're from.
Oh yeah.
And then it comes to me and I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I'm from New York. Like, I'm like, no fool. Yeah. They ask you what city you're from. They ask you what state you're from, what country you're from. And I'm like, I'm from New York.
Oh, no.
But like, and everyone was like, no matter where they are, they know New York.
Oh, they know it, yeah.
So I think that's the beauty of it. And then, it's full circle when you think about the marathon and the fact that it's a race that brings everybody in from all over the world, and they can come and experience and like run our streets and eat our food and experience our vibe and culture. That's one of the great things about New York.
Yeah, no, I love hearing you. So I am a California girl, born and raised, undergrad, grad school, all California. But the men in my life, by the way, my dad grew up in the Bronx.
Nice.
That's where he was born and raised. And my husband was born in New York City as well. So nice. I always say, what's the PS thing? What does PS mean? PS what? Oh, public school, whatever. so the men in my life are very much New York. I love New York. So
nice.
Where is your favorite place to run when you are in New York City? Like, where do you go?
I'm dealing with an injury right now, but prior to my injury, and I will be back running again, my two favorite places to run, and everyone would be like, oh, Central Park, Prospect Park. Yes, that's my backyard. That's where I work and that's where I run. That's great. But my favorite places to run are the west side of the island. So I live in a community called Washington Heights. So it's uptown Manhattan. It's not far from the track and field armory. And I cruise down and I can run along the west side of the island on the Hudson River, underneath the George Washington Bridge. I see the little red lighthouse, which there's a book about. Look it up. It's amazing. I can cruise along and I can see Jersey. So my parents are from the island of Haiti. I'm Caribbean. It's in my blood. It's in my nature. Give me some sun. Give me some sand all the time. The closest thing I'm going to get to that is running along the West Side Path with the Hudson next to me, and just like the variety that's there. And what's really cool in the summertime is when I'm running there and there's all the families out there, people cooking and hanging out and whatnot. So that's by far my favorite. And then the next would be Fort Tryon Park, which is up north here by me where the cloisters are. There's a Metropolitan Museum that's there. So it's beautiful. Like you get there and you don't even think you're in New York City. It's just, again, really high up in the city, overlooking the water. The views there are incredible.
Okay, you're wanting me to go. I want to go now for a run with you out there.
Nice,
So get healthy.
nice.
And when you are healthy, is there a run on your like a race on your bucket list that you want to do?
Yeah, I got a couple of bucket list races that I'd like to do. I thought, I've ran 33 half marathons and 2 full marathons. I ran New York twice. So I think my marathon days are behind me. But if there was a marathon I would run, it would be London. That marathon is just amazing.
Yeah,
I thought I was totally blown away by being there 2 years ago. And then other races that I would love to run, there's a variety. Hood to Coast would be cool to see, West Coast race. Beta Breakers, I've actually worked that race. It's pretty insane. They call it Beta Bonkers, but that'll be a really cool, beautiful race to be at, incredibly eclectic. Flying Pig, I'd love to run that.
You have a lot on your list.
Yeah. So, I have a couple in there. And then lastly, like the 2 races that I would love to squeeze in, if possible, are 2 races that I had been a part of in the production of directly and in support of, would be Rock and Roll Savannah. The city of Savannah is beautiful. That course is amazing. The half marathon course is unreal. So that would be something I would love to do, is run a race that I produced. That's always my favorite. And Vegas, the half marathon in Vegas would be really cool too. Again, a race that I've worked on a ton.
Yeah, you just want to go to Vegas. I can see it.
I'm like, listen, I'm not a Vegas guy per se, but it's a great, you get to run at night along the strip.
I know, on the strip. You can't beat that. Exactly. So I know we only have like a minute or 2 left. So I want to ask you, is there anything I did not ask you that maybe you'd want to share, or any question that I should have asked you?
Oh, wow. Honestly, it's one of those turnaround situations. It's, Dawna, thank you again. You're in a tremendous opportunity here to do some great things at Run USA. Some of my favorite professional memories have been at Run USA, the conferences, the meetings, the conversations that happen. Like those are some of the coolest things. So I guess like if you were going to ask me like what was my favorite Running USA, or like my favorite city. I haven't been into a ton, but I've been to a bunch. Puerto Rico was amazing. I'm biased again. I love San Juan. It's a great place. If you haven't gone, go. Savannah, again, was really, really cool. I was there prior to working on the Savannah event and taking that over as the operations lead. And it's an incredible city. So that was really cool. I'm trying to think of another one that was really fun. Vegas was fun last year, but those Puerto Rico and Savannah, 2 like parallels, were definitely 2 that hit high on my list. The LA one was fun too with the trials. That was a good time.
See, and I think we just missed each other. I went to about 8 Running USAs when I owned my magazine, Women's Running, and my series. And then when I sold them, I stopped going. So my last Running USA was 2013.
Oh, wow.
And so it sounds like I missed a whole bunch of really good ones, because it's always my favorite conference, to go to. So hopefully we will be back and we'll see each other in person soon. I wish you the best of luck. I'm so excited. And when I get to New York, we're going to go on that run. So get healthy.
Absolutely. I'm on it. I'm on doing my PT now. We'll meet up uptown and we'll run the bridge and take some great pictures.
Ted, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're super busy, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you so very much again, Dawna. Thanks to everyone at Run USA, and we'll see each other soon enough.
Sounds great. Thank you. Have a good one.